Sam and Ben Monthly Retro.
Hello and welcome to episode 5 of the Sam and Ben Monthly Retro. Episode 5 marked Ben Pollock's 1-year anniversary at Parabola, and as such, we decided to take a wider perspective and look at Ben's top 3 learnings that he's had in the role in his 12 months at Parabola. Enjoy. Okay, here we are. Welcome again to another episode of the Ben and Sam Monthly Retro. This is episode 5. We've made it to number 5. And in honor of Ben passing his 12-month mark, his 1-year anniversary at Parabola, we thought we'd zoom out, take a look at the year that's been rather than just the month that has gone past. So, Ben, congrats on the 1 year. How would you summarize the last 12 months?
Thanks, Sam. It's great to be back. 5 episodes in, having a lot of fun. The first thing I'd want to share is actually a reflection that I had after having a conversation with someone that I'm mentoring. They have a similar path to me. They're leading a growth team at a slightly larger company. They want to be ahead of marketing. Like how, you were a growth leader and now you're owning the whole marketing org. Like, how did you make that transition? And it made me chuckle. And ultimately, you almost need to find a leader, CEO, founder, or someone that's running the business to take a risk on you. For any position you haven't done before, it's about finding your unique opportunity, why you can specifically provide value, even if you haven't done that job before. And not only trying to prove that to your potential employer, but most importantly, reminding and proving that to yourself. I find it really validating when I see amazing leaders that I admire talk about imposter syndrome. Some of the most successful leaders at the biggest companies in the world still talk about imposter syndrome. I think it's something folks perpetually feel. And so for me, before I even get into the more tactical, tangible learnings, I think one big one for me was journeys are forever iterative. Imposter syndrome is a very real thing that everyone feels. And rather than trying to tuck that down and overcome that by just powering through, I'd encourage folks to really listen to that, note that, and tuck that back in and remind themselves that they're doing a great job and they're learning every day. So to summarize my last 12 months, I've never grown so quickly and as much as I did in the past 12 months. Those came from wins, those came from failures, and everywhere in between. And happy to kind of go through a few of those buckets or key things I learned. Beyond not feeling like an imposter and really just embracing that you're here for a reason. So I think the first one probably, Sam, would be speed. Speed is an enigmatic term. I move really fast. I always have. And I always was speed is not an issue for me. Speed is an issue or was an issue for me, and it probably will always be one, but not in the typical sense of you don't move fast enough. I think a lot of heads of marketing don't move fast enough, and that's a different problem. But for me, speed came down to a few different areas. One, I think when I joined the business, I tried to move really, really, really fast. We were and are under high pressure goals. With those goals comes the feeling that you have to do everything right away. But the truth is, if you focus on only doing a few of those things and doing them really, really well, and then rinsing and repeating, you'll probably find better results in the process. So it's less about how fast you're moving, but it's more about where you're focusing your speed and then how quickly you're making decisions off of the results of that test, that hire, that motion, that piece of content. Time is the most valuable resource at any company. Moving too fast will actually shoot yourself in the foot, but rather slowing down, gaining levels of focus, communicating that with your team, making sure those are the right priorities, and then making sure that there's a so what at the end. It's not just something you do in perpetuity. You either continue with that motion or that tactic or you don't. Those are all big time learnings for me. And so part of what I'm still working on is how do I keep moving fast with urgency and with energy, but do so in a way that's controlled, that's well communicated, and extremely ruthless in terms of prioritization.
Yeah, it's speed to outcome, right? It's how do you narrow what you're doing so that you can get to a result quicker, which you learn, you improve, and you keep building on. And I think the other part that we've talked about is is it's hard to make up for lost time. Like unless you know, and that's in the sense of like if you do too many things at once and don't get to the outcome and the priority number one, it takes forever to come back and make up for the lost time from the learning of actually getting to the result there. Is there maybe an example like you can think about within the last 12 months where, hey, maybe I should have focused on that, got to the first result, moved on to the next thing rather than trying to do things simultaneously?
Yeah, I'll give you an example. When I joined, I wanted to start growing pipeline as quickly as possible immediately, but I also wanted to start taking some longer term bets. I know we'll talk about that in a bit. The truth is, I did not have enough bandwidth to start focusing on some of those longer term bets at the time. This is like 3 weeks in, right? And so in that context, I was like, oh, I need to really focus on some longer term bets. We should start testing some SEO. And so we wrote some blog posts. We did some keyword research for the first time and just like threw some stuff up there, which I think is okay. Like it's okay to test that. But 10, 12 months later, some of those articles are kind of ranking. It's cool. None of them are driving significant traffic for the business. So we're left here still wondering outcome. Is SEO a channel that we should really invest in? Let's like play that back. And let's think about the two different routes I could have gone at that time. And that costed team time, development time, all this stuff. I could have said, while I want to test this, team's too swamped right now. We have so much going on. And let's give it a much better shot in a few months and reevaluate. Or we could have said, we're going to abandon this tactic for short-term pipe, but we're going to do the best SEO project possible. And we know that if it fails, this just might not be the best channel for us in our business. Speed to outcome there, faith in outcome, trust in the outcome on the go, no go would have been so much stronger. And I think each time we've deployed a test here at Parabola on the marketing team, we've gotten better and better with that feedback loop on, yes, this is working. No, this is not working. And I'll give you a couple more examples there. In Q1, we started doing some competitive takedown campaigns, bidding on a few competitors. A few of those, we were creating ops. We were creating qualified demo requests. ICP wasn't great. Trying to fit a square peg into a round hole just wasn't totally working for us. We were naive in wanting it to work. We were blinded by that a little bit. But the truth was, like, we probably had signal that it wasn't working earlier than we ultimately made a decision on it. And I think in that context, like, we probably overspent X thousands of dollars of bidding on a competitor that we had no business bidding on. That was much better than our SEO project that kind of lingered and now has languished. We got results. We got to an outcome, but probably wasn't quick enough. As of late, in the last episode, I talked about our rebrand. With our rebrand, we kind of shocked our LinkedIn algorithm a little bit. We pushed in a bunch of new adverts, many of which we were bullish about, and I still think many of them are awesome. Within 2 weeks, on most of them, we had thousands of impressions and dozens of clicks, which to me felt like good stat sig. We immediately killed half of the ads in the budget. Repushed that budget into campaigns that started to find success. Our paid social spend is looking really healthy right now. Cost per lead is great. Cost per op is great. And now we have the opportunity to scale. If we didn't make that quick outcome, that quick decision point, we'd still be here with slightly inflated spend, not having the most efficient like lead gen motion there. I think the key learning is like, no one internally cares that stuff didn't work. That's absolutely expected. If things aren't working, you're probably not trying enough, or you've hit everything on the head, which is quite rare. But folks do care about accountability to the outcome and speed to the outcome. And so that's really what we're trying to live and die by now, is really targeted, specific tests with really clear success criteria that ultimately helps us make that go, no-go decision quickly.
Mm-hmm. Love it. Yeah, just making sure you give enough investment to, confidently move on from something and not letting it bog down and stay around forever. Yeah, time and time again, you see that where it's like, let's do this test and we're going to like half bake a test and there's not enough put towards it. It takes longer. No one gets confidence and maybe to the SEO point, it sits there for a long
Totally.
time. Or you just get that slight more data that you're like, let's give it a little more, and it keeps on going there. So nice lesson. If you know Ben personally, you know he does run. I don't know if he physically runs with a lot of speed, but he does everything in life with a lot of speed. So a good. It means a lot if that's your key lesson is how do you get speed to outcome, and that's your number one takeaway from the last 12 months.
My motto at work is slow down. My motto in my professional life is slow down to speed up. My motto in my personal life is slow down so you don't re-tear your ACL. It's just trying not to get hurt. So I'm happy to keep moving slow there. And in my professional life, slow down to speed up. But I know I'd still beat you in a race, Sam. That's for sure. So at least I can rest easy on that.
I don't know how easy it is. Sometimes maybe over 5 meters or 10 feet, I beat you. Short distance. Yeah.
Sure. There you
go. No, good lesson 1. Lesson 2. We're going to go through them. We're going to number them now. So number 1, speed. Yes. Number 2 is.
Let's go with balancing short.
That was my intro for you.
That was for me. Okay. Number 2 would be, I got you. It would be more like an alley-oop, but it's fine. Classic Kiwi. Number 2 for me would probably be the balancing of short-term and long-term tactics. So let's just take a field trip, everyone. Your first time head of marketing, you're excited, you're bullish, you're so eager to provide value for the business. But you're a good marketer, and you know that pipeline doesn't happen overnight, and you can't just snap your fingers. And so you're looking at all the world of possibilities. Marketing is challenging. There's so many things and avenues and tests you can run. Where do you start? Where do you put time in? Do you prioritize pipeline for tomorrow or next week? Do you prioritize pipeline for next year? Start building a brand. Where do you start? And the way I've really embodied or at least internalized this is it's a balance. It's a balance based on the context of the business, the types of companies you're selling into, what's required to move them into pipe, and then facilitate them through the pipe. But ultimately, you need both. One really simple framework here, and this isn't one-to-one with long-term and short-term, but it's relatively aligned. Think about brand building initiatives that you need to do to grow awareness, but then also think about lead gen levers, punches, stabs that you can take month over month to increase or decrease lead gen as you need it. So just again, taking a field trip, you're first time head of marketing, you're in seat, you have high pressure from your boss and from the business. And so likely when you think about your time and your team's time, there will be tactics that you can deploy right away that can drive pipeline. This could be competitive bidding. This could be fixing some of the lead gen on your website, forms, journeys, stuff like that. This could be really concrete, specific outbound campaigns that are smart. Yesterday I posted that I don't think email is dead. I just think it's changed. All of those avenues are very real channels through which you can generate pipeline next week, right? That is not a promise you should ever make, but it's certainly a test that you can run, hopefully to reach some good results. On the flip side, standing those up, it's going to fill pipeline for next quarter, for this quarter, for this month. How do you start thinking about what we need to be doing to get an imprint of brand in our ICP's mind? This is typically a little bit more content-led, a little bit more community-led, case studies, messaging, website. If you're only taking short-term lead gen punches for your first 6 months, you're going to get to month 6. Oh shit. I have no brand foundation on which I can build. On the flip side, if you're only doing amazing brand building activities, you might be oh yeah, our brand slapped and people know about us, but we need revenue. Our pipeline numbers are empty. So it's a balance. It's a balance for sure. For me, my learning, I joined at an interesting time at Parabola. We were just raising, and so we had just closed a round, and we were about to announce that round, our Series B. So I think some of the areas in which I would have liked to have spent time, I didn't. Certainly didn't spend as much time listening to customers and understanding them as I should. Certainly didn't take enough like short-term tests because we were focused on like a big-time brand launch. I ended up redoing our website and our brand and did a whole rebrand through an agency. Started in Jan, finished in May, right at my 1 year. Should have done that way sooner. Had a gut feeling around it, had talked about it. Should have done that 2 months into the job, not 7 months into the job. Reason being, we were taking lead gen punches and starting to do some brand building initiatives, and I thought we had a really good balance of it. But all of it falls short if you don't have a clear foundation. A website that's strong, that you can build on, that your team can use, that your team can clone. And honestly, since we've launched our new site and our new brand, I feel like my team is a bit like unlocked, where we can now like create content at scale. We can run branded lead gen campaigns at scale. So everything has become that much more easy for us. But in summary, every week as like a first time head of marketing or even just any marketing leader, what I would encourage folks to think about is like, where do I expect my team's motions to benefit us in the short term? Where do I expect those to benefit us in the long term? And is it the right mix? Like I don't have that answer. Only you and probably your team can have that answer. I also think it creates really clear communication frameworks and mediums for the broader team. When can we expect pipe from this? Oh, well, this is actually not something we should expect directly attributable pipeline from anytime soon. We just launched a community. We have 100 members. It's super active. We're hosting AMAs. It's awesome. Everyone's jazzed. I'm telling the team, this is not a short-term bet. We should not expect short-term pipeline from this initiative, but we can from these. And here's our tests and our hypotheses behind them. So really clear intentionality for your own sense, making sure it's the right balance, which then helps you up manage communication to the rest of the org.
Love it. Yeah, I think it's interesting. The challenge on the agency side is somewhat similar. Like you start an engagement, you're like, I want to impress. But if you don't try and push back and like do some things that are gonna, or plant the seeds for slightly further down the relationship, it's hard to catch up for it. And I think what you touched on there, and maybe another way of saying it, is that the marginal growth that you can get from marketing over time requires more time and effort. Like you can do a lot of small things and you can stack those, but eventually you have to do like the bigger bets, the brand building activities, or say SEO, etc., that just take more effort and time, and you can't keep doing those short-term things. So if you don't think of those, longer ones that take more time, then your future self is going to kick your past self for it. It's like, I think the term we discussed was like, you got to keep your job now, but you also got to keep your job in 6 months. You got to think about both those people when you're doing your work.
Totally. And when I'm planning constantly, and this probably isn't the healthiest thing to do, but I'm constantly like, okay, cool. We have this piece is going live next week, and then we have this campaign and sponsorship for the following week. And boy, I'm really excited for what we're cooking up in September. But are we spending too much time on that to make sure we're getting our short-term wins across? Constant realignment in my head, and then communicating that back to my team as well.
Nice. Okay, so number one was around speed to outcome. Number two, we're talking about like balancing short-term and long-term investments and communicating effectively around those, and when we expect outcomes. Do we have a third key learning from the last 12 months? That's again, what's the...
Oh, that's value.
Yeah, I try to make a little more straightforward there.
That looked more like a volleyball set than a pass, but it's okay. My Celtics are going to take Game 4 home tonight, so that's all I can think of right now. I think this is a strange one for me, my last bucket here, because it's something that I always assumed I was really good at, because I'm a natural people person and I was captains of my sports teams and all this stuff. But shit, managing is really hard. Working with cross-functional team is really hard, especially as a leader. And like, I feel very blessed in that like I've been given this opportunity, and like everyone messes up. I certainly have messed up on tactics, on people, on management, all this stuff. I interviewed for my first manager role 2 or 3 years ago at a company that's now doing very well, and I didn't get the job. And I asked for feedback because I really wanted that role, and the recruiter told me that I came off too confident, and it was such a learning experience for me. I definitely have a little bit of an ego. I know that a lot of people do. And in that moment, I was like, I'm trying to be something that I'm not. I'm trying to speak to how good of a manager I am, all my management styles and skills, and why I'm strong. The truth is, what the more powerful interview would have been like how I messed up and what I learned from it. Like that's authentic. And actually, I felt that a little bit at my last job where I was managing a growth team. And I felt that now. And I think like there are some concrete things that I can take away from this year to share. One, as I put together my marketing plan, Kyle Poyer from OpenView, who works with us, I showed him the plan. He's like, this is great. Like, how are you going to do all this? It's going back to time, speed, focus. I'm like, yeah, I'll work 24 hours a day. I don't care. I'll sheer force. It's not true. But he was like, the biggest thing you're missing here is hiring. I was so focused on the immediate goal, the thing I needed to do tomorrow to generate pipelines so that we could continue to grow. And I was blinded by the fact that like I needed to hire, grow, and nurture a well-performing team. And I needed to make sure that my peers were fully bought in and on board and helping and included in our motions. And so I think it's like some mistakes I've made along the way. One is trying to hero things instead of asking for help. Optimism versus pragmatism, really different. I'm a really optimistic person, and I found myself wearing rose-colored glasses all too often. One of my peers, who's very direct, called me out on it. He's like, do you actually think this is a good idea, or are you just saying yes because you want it to work? I was taken aback. It's like, oh, sheesh. Damn, that's a really good question, right? And so I think like in part of this motion for me, one is like make a quick decision on hires, whether it's people you're inheriting or people you're hiring. It's imperative you make quick decisions. That's natural. That's kind. I've been talking a lot about the difference between being kind and being nice lately. I'm trying to be more kind and less nice. I think being kind is being direct. With your team, that means having really concrete conversations around what expectations look like, what great looks like, what just okay looks like relative to their role in band and the company's needs. With folks that you might inherit, I think that means taking very real but swift action on whether or not this is the right fit for the team, ultimately prioritizing the business, but also that human being and their experience. And working with cross-functional team, like I made a mistake here. My team wanted to use Asana. No one else in the org uses Asana, so I was like, let's use Asana. But like it further insulated us, where we were trying to get folks to join us on a testimonial play or a case study or whatever it might be. It's like, oh, where's the task for that, right? It's in our buried system. So there's a lot of like things I messed up and learned from. But I think like the key underlying like denominator of all of those conversations is just being extremely direct and deliberate in how you communicate with respect to like what you need and what the org needs. So I know that was a spiel, but I used to think when a boss once told me, you need to slow down, I said to her, everyone else needs to speed up. And she said to me, Ben Pollock might be able to run at 100 miles an hour. Definitely can't do that physically, maybe mentally. But if your team and peers cannot run at that same speed, not because they're not capable, but because they're not in your head, the whole car is going to crash. On the flip side, if you can slow yourself down to 75 miles per hour, that may feel slow to you, but it actually allows you to give yourself the space to have direct conversations with your team and critically think. It allows your peers who aren't marketers to fully understand and move with you. And it's more intentional bets. Everyone's behind the marketing game plan, all that stuff. So that is a constant battle for me. Something I'm doing right now. We're changing up our go-to-market motion in a little bit more of an account-based fashion. I have a really strong, passionate idea on how that should work. I move too fast with it. I'm taking a beat right now to write out my idea, send a loom to my peers on how this will all work to make sure we're lockstep moving forward next week. I'd rather start cranking on that plan. I'm itching to do it, but it would behoove all of us. It would help the team as a whole succeed if I just took a beat, better manage my communication with folks, both down on my team for what I need and then across the org. And I'm super confident that will lead to a better outcome and better success.
Nice. Yeah, I would summarize as like bringing people on the journey. Like it's as you're making these decisions, as you're thinking about them, like it's just because you know it's right, like convincing people before you did make that decision for the org allows them to be bought in, allows them to think about how it applies to them. But definitely one I'm always guilty of. I was guilty in my past role, even at like us now. I get the same thing where it's like, no, I know we're going to do this, and it's like you don't get the buy-in. You're like, why isn't it working? I told you what to do. And it's like you to bring people on the journey and get that buy-in and prior and that ownership to give to other people to get the work done.
For sure. And it's funny, as I just reflect in our conversation, all of these threads are actually somewhat intertwined. Showing perfect work, feeling free to fail, showing imperfect work, spending time in the right areas, communicating right with those under you, but also those horizontal to you and your peers. It all kind of just comes back to being really intentional in your time and how you communicate, but also feeling trust from others, even if you may not like fully have that confidence yourself. And as a concrete example, I've had a lot of ideas at Parabola and I've presented them to folks in a variety of ways. What's almost never successful is like me and my team are trying to make that idea perfect, crystal clear. And then we present it to team without context. Everyone's like, why are you doing that? What? Right? Even if it's the best idea, it's like just met without context, without being along for that journey or that ride. On the flip side, let's just take that same idea and instead of like showing the perfect product 3 weeks later when folks are wondering where you've been tooling or what you've been doing, you have a check-in week and a half and it's not nothing. You have what we would call like a straw person. Like, this is my idea. This is how I'm thinking about this. Like, how might you change it? Where can you inject your ideas? Would you do this differently? They're bought in. They've probably actually helped you make a better decision with how you'll execute that project. They're excited to be involved. And then the psychological component is they're part of it. They're rooting for it. Folks are so much more likely to get behind an idea. I don't mean to like celebrate it, but truly spend their time that might be out of their specific domain on an idea if they're part of it. And so I think to your point, getting folks along for the journey helps them feel part of it, also makes for better outcome and better work by getting more opinions, and makes a much smoother ride for the marketing leader along the way.
Brilliantly summed up, and nice 3 points. And I like your the way you said it. They all intertwine. It comes back to people, time, communication. If you get those right as a leader, as a manager, everything else can usually fall into place. But
and the most important thing throughout all of it, the most important thing throughout all of it, I know you tried to close this out, is to have fun. Like, I'm actually trying not to be super cheesy here. I've had a hard time with that. So it's less like, oh, wow, oh, gosh. It's more like, this is really challenging. I'm learning a ton. I'm growing. I'm working with great people. It's all good. Right. And so I think it's really important to remember that amidst the challenges too. And on that note,
is that your alley-oop?
That's your alley-oop.
Back to me there. That was my alley-oop. Well, thank you, Ben. No, congrats on the last year. I know as a friend, as a vendor to you, I've enjoyed being able to watch on the sidelines of this one. I think you've crushed it in the role and growing strength to strength and build a good team around you and a great culture. So kudos to you, and I look forward to seeing more up and to the right trajectory and more learnings for the next 6 months in this year.
Same here.